welcome to the Ended Up in Vegas podcast. I'm Nikki.
I'm Megan.
Unshakeable is a nonprofit organization here in Las Vegas helping women who are recovering from trauma to receive career independence and financial independence. The president and founder of that organization is here with us, Debbie Isaacs. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure to be here.
Tell us how you ended up in Vegas.
Well, initially I was working in New York doing meetings and events and conventions, and it was just one of those, I was in my late 20s, and it was just one of those things like, I don't know, some bad decisions, nothing was going right, and so it goes back to 1994. So a friend of mine worked in the LA Mart and saw an ad on what used to be known as the green sheets. So these were like flyers that went out on Friday in the LA Mart, either talked about sample sales, but also had jobs. And there was a job for a trade show company in Vegas. And she's like, circles it, faxes it. That's how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And sent it to me and was like, this will be great for you.
Oh my gosh.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go for it. So I faxed them my resume, and they called 2 days later, and it was one of those phone calls where I just, something like in my spirit was like, I want to work for these guys. Mm-hmm. Like, and I had been interviewing with a very large meeting planning company in Washington, D.C. at the time. Mm-hmm. And so, but there was something about the spirit of the owners of this company in Vegas. Like, they were just entrepreneurs, former casino executives, and I couldn't shake it. I was like, I have to come out here.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. And so you came out here, and that was like your industry for many years, right? So explain the next, I think you had another gut instinct.
Yeah, I did meetings and events out here, obviously a great city for that. And the company I worked for went out of business, and I knew I didn't want to move back to New York yet, so I sold cars for like a very short time, and realized that finance directors never had to go outside and deal with the elements. So taught myself, like shout out somebody and was like, I want to be you, mm-hmm. and then became a finance director for a very large family-owned car dealership here in town. And sometimes at night when we were waiting for customers, to sign their paperwork, we'd all talk about like, what would you do? I was like, I always felt like I could do something in TV or film. And a bunch of us got together and were like, we're going to make a movie. And so, I tell people at Unshakeable, we believe that your past doesn't define you. So for me, this is true as well. And also a story of when a lot of people come together with not aligned intention. So we made a movie, and now it's a fundraiser in October around Halloween called The Most Horrible Horror Movie Ever. It's which it isn't, but it's campy, but the experience taught me so much. And then I stayed doing that and started producing here in Las Vegas. And really, to make a very long story medium, it was about the time where everybody was getting reality shows, mm-hmm. and I heard about a court program in Las Vegas that at the time was really rehabilitating street prostitutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, no better backdrop than Las Vegas. This mm-hmm. is a crazy story of empowerment. Mm-hmm. And I talked my way into like meeting with the judge, and Judge Leung was like, sure, come observe our court. And I remember walking in there thinking, next Mark Burnett, this is going to be huge. And I tell a story, if they ever release the recording of Javs, you'll see me ugly crying in the back, listening to the women share their experience and their stories. And probably the second time in my life that kind of conviction within that, says, like, just spoke to me and said, you need to do something. Mm-hmm. Not here to tell their story. You need to change it. Mm. And I left not knowing what to do, but kept going back and talking to the women in the program. Went to their house that they lived in for dinner, or went out for coffee, and I noticed a gap in some of the programs here are about the rest. What I say is it's about the rescue, the residency, their therapy recovery, But at the end, there's this rush to find them employment, and it wasn't always sustainable, and it wasn't always long lasting. And I was like, what could we do?
So that was what, 7 years ago?
Yeah, about 9. It took me a little bit to really jump in and say, I'm going to make this, like, I'm really going to do it as a nonprofit. A little, just sitting down with Judge Lee Young. She came to me one day and said, you may not know this because you're not in court that often, but the program you're bringing to the courthouse for the women is really having an effect on them. Like, they talk about it. They come out of there feeling inspired. They have hope. Like, they really talk about being changed in just those lecture series that you're doing. And she was like, maybe you want to formalize something instead of being the woman with curly hair and glasses that does video and comes in with lectures once in a while. So that changed it.
Wow.
So what is the mission of the nonprofit?
Our mission is to help women recovering from trauma. So addiction, homelessness, domestic and sexual violence, and human trafficking survivors return to the workforce with a career and not just a job, and achieve financial independence. What makes us unique is that we commit to a minimum of 2 years with each client. And this is really about helping the women craft their own vision, and then with them committing to, like Unshakeable committing to that vision with them, and they commit to that vision, and then collaborating on how that works. So it's it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of our clients haven't worked in 17 years or more. Some don't have high school degrees yet. Some have criminal records that needs to be sealed. Some can't get sealed. So it's a process, and we do a very intensive case management on all of that.
And you guys have a career training program as well, right?
It's not really career training. It's more career development. Like, we do a lot of job shadowing. We do a lot of career chats and a lot of exploration. So there are organizations that do a lot of certification jobs, CNA, phlebotomist. We're really about helping you explore, like, maybe at some point in your life you wanted to work at NASA, but things happened and you can't. So maybe we align you with a job at the planetarium here, or, maybe you're not meant to sit at a desk. So we have a lot of great hiring partners here that have thousands of jobs. When you think about all of the hotel and casinos, everybody always thinks of the front of the hotel, but there's thousands of jobs there. One of the largest casinos here has a hawk wrangler. I mean, who would know?
Yeah,
but
Right.
that could be a cool job.
Right.
That's so incredible.
Yeah. I have goosebumps. I had goosebumps when you described it to me. And, when we first met, and I could tell that you had just this very, subtle pride about what you had created. So tell us how many women you have helped in the program so far.
Well, currently it's over 200. This year, our goal is somewhere upwards of 150 this year. We've increased, our staff. It's, 4 people total. And I tell people we're kind of grassroots. So, if something has to go to the mailbox, that may be me one day, but, we work as a collaborative team, and lots of discussions on what we should do and how we can accomplish it. And we have a lot of amazing partners that we work with.
How does it work in tandem, too, to help these women get back on their feet? I mean, it's to think about any career change, right?
Yeah.
is a huge feat in your mind. So to then think of that when it's so psychological and so, physically and emotionally driven, how do you help them make the transition?
I tell people, I think that our program has really 3 phases. So the first phase is what we call our I Am series, which my background in meetings and events, originally the program was 4 nights a week, 3 weeks in a row. And what we noticed is that some areas, especially the emergency shelters, which do a great job, and the women sometimes wouldn't stay the full 3 weeks or 90 days or whatever. Things happen.
Sure.
And I was like, how can we reach them faster? So, dug into the bag of tricks, was like, oh, guess what? We're going to do a 2-day women's conference. So we designed the workshops into now a full 2 days women's conference. It would, like, if you attend one, it'll look and feel exactly that way. Guest speakers, lunch and learns. And I think the goal of that for me is if the women leave at the end of the second day with hope, and we can measure hope, and we do. So if they leave with hope, if they leave with a sense of hope, we know that they will take the next brave step and come in for a coaching session. Mm-hmm. And then once that starts, our one-on-one individual career coaching is really where we get to say, you might have heard you're dumb or you're not worth it or your feelings don't count or your opinion doesn't count or you can't do it. And we're like a voice that says none of that is true. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And in a way, everything you need to be successful is already inside of you. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to focus on all of the things that you know to be true. And we have a lot of moments when we're, for the very first time when we ask the women, like, close your eyes kind of and dream, like, what would you do? Mm-hmm. Right. And, it's either met with like a bold excitement of like, oh my gosh, I always wanted to, like, if I could, or there's this emotional release of, I can't believe for the first time ever somebody's allowing me to make that decision. Uh-huh. And so it's just, it's a great moment. And from there, we move forward, whatever it is. And, I'm truly blessed. Our coaches are picking up phones. Like, if you want to do something and we don't have a connection, we are dialing, calling, reaching out, like trying to find, to make a way for that career.
Yeah. I'm sure that, human beings are messy and everyone loves a success story, but what is the support system after they have gone through, the 3 steps and how they can, maintain what they've learned?
Well, our goal ultimately is at the end of 2+ years to either have them at what we consider a sustainable income for a single mom, because the majority of our clients are single parents. So if we can get them near 40,000, 45,000, we think they're off to a good start. But I will tell you that every client that comes through Unshakeable knows that we will be there for as long as they need. And so, and what we've done through those stages and what they've really done on their own is some of them have gotten off, like, government subsidies and programs. So now they have benefits at the jobs they're going for. And for the first time ever, we have a client, she hadn't worked a formal job in 17 years. Sure. But has a 6-year-old son and just got a GED. And she's working, as a guest room attendant at a major property on Las Vegas, a 5-star actually. And, but for the first time ever, she has a steady paycheck, benefits for herself and her son in an amazing organization that will walk alongside her too. And the potential to, move up within their organization. And, for the first time, she was telling me that, for her son's birthday this year, she was able to put a party together at Chuck E. Cheese, something that we don't even think about, and I think that's kind of the story of Unshakeable. Like, we take for granted being able to go to Starbucks and knowing what to do there. And so we literally teach all of those things.
What's the age range and kind of are a lot of the women locals or are they from other places?
Well, we serve women 18 and up, and I would say, the range of the women we meet in the domestic and violence emergency shelters is, 38 to 52. It's really, and the remarkable part, and I think what made me 100% dive in and make Unshakeable the full-time job was the first time I was at Safeness, which is a great partner of ours, and Liz Ortenberger does a great job over there, and there were 2 women in the room that night that had master's degrees.
Wow.
And for the first time, I think I realized, this could have been one of my friends. Like, it really could have been one of my friends. And and I think that that moment changed me. And I realized, like, what we're doing, what they're doing, what every supportive program around, like, matters.
Wow. Yeah. I would have never thought that would have been the age range. I would have thought it was younger. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably what maybe most people think. I don't know. I mean, in that situation, do you think that some of the women who the ones that you're speaking of were just in the relationships were bad, and is that kind of what carried them through that span of life?
Yeah, I think it's twofold, right? We've all had a bad relationship, but this is like totally, you know what I mean? Like, we've all had that, whether you refer to it as a dark years or whatever. There's been that relationship where you, where you maybe felt you knew inside that I shouldn't be feeling this way. Like, I should be with somebody that raises me up instead of putting me down, or should speak to me better. And I think sometimes that, especially with our, trafficking, especially with trafficking victims, they prey upon the fact that, that you do have insecurities, and it looks like, oh, let me get you this purse, let me take you to dinner, and the grooming starts. And a lot of the women, what we work through alongside our partners is understanding that person wasn't really your boyfriend or fiance, and what I tell, if they're controlling your money, that's not freedom. So that's kind of the key.
And that's so huge. I feel like that's just like a stunning psychological shift to go through when you're in the experience and not outside of it looking in. And so I think that's where it's like, regular people, not just, people who are mixed up in trafficking or really harsh life circumstances, can benefit from the services that you provide.
Yeah, well, we hope so, for sure. But, first of all, the financial abuse happens to 99% of all domestic and sexual violence victims. And whether that's controlling your credit cards, taking your check, whatever that looks like.
Sure.
But I think, the other part that's really hard is that emotional need, need to please, and, I want to be all things, and there is not going to be any level of what you can do if, for people out there that have dated a narcissist, this is going to sound familiar, but there's not going to be anything about you that will fix that. That's their problem. But, being brave enough to leave. And I say that all the time. It's not like the movies. Some of these women come into shelter with a garbage bag, or nothing. Yeah. Or it's a 911 phone call, or, it's a little messy. Yeah. And, and it doesn't always work the first time. We have certainly had clients that have started, went back, and then have come back again. Sure. But what we do notice is if they're employed and they have, a living wage or some financial stability in their life, they leave differently that next time. They have a power they didn't have before, and that's great.
I think that's so fundamental, to that situation, because to have control when you don't have any, when you don't have any other options, right? It's really challenging.
Yeah.
So tell us how people get involved in helping your mission.
Just if you go to our website, there's an area to volunteer, and
And that's unshakeable.org.
Unshakeable.org. Thanks. And, I tell people, find what you're passionate about, and we'll be able to apply that to us. Because, we certainly are looking for people to help us on our special events committee. So if you have a desire to set up and tear it down and coordinate some of that, we could use some help there. But, a really good friend of mine, Ed Merzen, hi Ed, is a global creative director for Aristocrat Gaming, also one of our partners. And really his whole life, he's been a creative director for multiple agencies. But his real passion is cooking. And the first couple of classes, he tried to talk about, like, hey, if you have, if you didn't want to go to school and you can draw, like maybe graphic design. But like for him, he just felt like he wasn't really connecting. And the women were like, So, and I joke about, like, until the pandemic, I was a terrible cook and barely cooked. And, when you couldn't go out to eat, you had to learn to cook. So Ed created a course called 10 Things to Keep in Your Pantry. And literally it's a list of things, like, so that even if you had kids and they open the door and they're like, there's nothing to eat, these 10 ingredients will give you a meal for under $20 for a family of 4.
Yeah, we need to look that up.
But the best part about it is we teach, again, basic skills that we take for granted. How to use the Target app to go shopping, how to use any of the, Smiths, Albertsons, or Vons to save money. And, on your phone, like, a lot of the women, they went to like a Get and Go or the 7-Eleven and did their grocery shopping. Like, we had to teach them, like, hey, you may want to go to. And so it's just great, to bring people around a meal and cook with them. And so he gets to, talk about his passion of cooking. A lot of the women in the class start sharing their favorite moment. Maybe it was cooking with their mom or a grandmother or a relative, or teaching their kids now how to cook. And so, it's not what Ed does 9 to 5, but it's a passion. So I think that's why I say, if you have something you love to do, we'll turn it into a workshop, and make it educational as well.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
For sure. So being a New Yorker who now lives in Las Vegas, you've had all of the glitzy, glammy, event style things, but now you work with humans.
Right.
So tell us, what keeps you loving Las Vegas now that you've seen both sides of it?
I think that I fell in love in Las Vegas when I moved here, and I still say this. I think it's a small, big town. And I think that, when I moved here, like everyone, I was like, if it doesn't work out, I'll move back.
Sure.
And then I never did. And, like 10 years later, my brother moved out here. So now I have family out here. I don't know. I think it's just a sense of community that people really don't get. Like, I know my New York friends, when they first came out to visit, I think they were expecting like showgirls in the living room. Like they were like, like I had snobby friends that lived in Manhattan and they were like, Vegas. But, it's, we're a community like any other. And I think we're a community that comes together, especially in that nonprofit world.
Yeah. And you live in Henderson, right?
I do. I live in Henderson.
You love Henderson?
I do. I tell people I've lived in the same 8-mile radius since my first apartment on Green Valley Parkway, and haven't really moved out of that 8-mile radius.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's so funny. So what are some of your favorite spots in town?
This is my new favorite hang. So I tell people, I am my father's daughter, and when I was doing meetings and events, he's the first person that taught me about an excellent steak and a great martini. And so if you haven't been to 138, this is my plug.
Nice.
Go there. It's like my new favorite place. But I also am an old school New Yorker, so I still go to the Palm at the Farm Shops. So you could find me at either of those two places, and once in a while, the bootlegger.
Oh yeah, love the bootlegger.
Gotta love the bootlegger.
Yeah, my dad and I were once up on the wall at the Palm. He actually had 2 photos, 2 caricatures.
Yeah,
That's what they're
caricatures.
called. Yeah, and then when they revamped the whole restaurant, I was like, oh, we're being taken down.
Yeah, so I made the cut. So there is a picture of me still, and my
Still
caricature
there?
is up there.
I love
That's
it.
awesome.
And they were really lovely. And there's a caricature of my mom and dad they did out of a photograph I sent them because the first time they offered me the caricature, which is you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
My mom had just passed away, and my dad like 18 months before that. And I sent them a picture and said, "Could it be this?" And I didn't hear back for a while. And then I came in for dinner one night, and they did this like silly unveiling of their caricature on the wall, and
Yeah.
it was just great. And we made the cut. So
That's awesome.
I'm there, and if you go to the check-in stand with the hostess, just look behind you. We're on that wall right there.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, we went, going back to 138, we went there one night and they were doing burgers and we really wanted a steak. So we didn't get to enjoy it. It was a bummer, but I'll have to go back. What do you prefer to eat there?
Last night I went and took part in the restaurant week for 3 Squares. So I had short ribs, which was great. But if you go there, say hi to Jean and let him know Debbie sent you, and it's all good. So
Love it. What are some of the local things that you recommend for people to do that are off strip or maybe on strip too?
well, for me, I'm a big fan of the strip. Like, I still get, I still have that moment sometimes walking into like Caesar's Palace, like, because it's still like Caesar's.
Yeah.
But I always tell people you have to go to the Conservatory at Bellagio. I mean, it's just stunning. And otherwise you could probably find me walking around like downtown Summerlin or.
Yeah.
That's my first one. If people want to know what to do, you have to go to the conservatory. It's like one of the best things on the strip.
For sure. Mandatory.
Or the high roller.
Oh, you like the high roller? Yeah, my kids were not impressed. They were like, this thing is going so slow.
It is a little slow. But not with a cocktail and something
That changes the element of it. Do you want to play a little game we call Kiss, Marry, Kill, Vegas edition?
Sure.
Okay.
What am I signing up for?
So yeah.
What am I signing up for here?
We just do strip hotels. So Excalibur, Luxor, Circus.
Well, and what's the choices?
Kiss, Marry, Kill. So one you wouldn't mind seeing dismantled. Maybe another one you'd like to stay forever. The other one you'd just be like, we can kiss. But,
So what were the 3?
Excalibur, Luxor, Circus.
For me, I think Circus should always stay. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
a history,
Yeah.
but could use some cleanup. I'd kill Excalibur,
Okay.
and Luxor, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like all locals who have been here for a long time, I always compare it to like what I said. If you saw it being dismantled, would you be like, so long, or, shed a little tear?
Yeah, I mean, when they took down the Desert Inn, that was for me, was like, oh.
I was there when
Really?
they imploded it. Yeah.
That was like, that was the one, like, oh my gosh, that hotel was great.
Yeah. And I think that's what it brings about, right? Is like the question brings about the memories that you have of seeing things come and go.
Yeah.
And then anticipating them in that way.
All the nostalgia.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yes.
This is great.
So unshakeable.org is how people get a hold of you.
Yeah.
And then any other call to action that you want people to know about?
I mean, listen, I give my phone number out all the time, so you could call me if you want, or text me 702-296-2490. Every client has my phone number. I tell them you get the same phone number that my family has. It matters that much to me.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the
Thank you.
podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great.